I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Thank you, everyone at TED PSU, for pulling this wonderful event together. I want to start by telling you two very personal things about me. For starters, I'm a superhero. No, not the kind of superhero that you all know and love, not Batman, not Superman, or my absolute favorite superhero, Spider-Man. I don't have some souped-up Batmobile parked outside, or some bright red cape, or Spidey's sixth sense. I'm not the flashy superhero type like them, but I have superpowers. I'll get to that soon enough. The other really personal thing I want to tell you about me is that I'm deaf. And as the family legend goes, when I was 6 weeks old, I had double pneumonia and a deadly high fever. It's because of this high fever that I became deaf. Well, how deaf am I? I'm very deaf. In clinical terms, I have what's called sensorineural hearing loss. That high fever ravaged my inner ears. It burned away the hair cells in my cochlea. In my right ear, I'm 100% deaf. In my left ear, I'm severely hard of hearing. In the hearing world, I use lip reading and a slew of tricks to try to understand folks. When all else fails, I usually pretend to hear. I'm really good at pretending. I've been doing it since I was a little kid. I have two aims for this talk. I want to tell you two stories. The first story is about the day that I discovered I was a superhero. The second story is about deaf people. I want to use this story about deaf people to show you how we can change what we think about deaf people. We'll get back to that soon enough. When I was a kid, this is me. When I was a kid, I wished so badly to be a superhero. I loved superheroes. On TV, in the comics, playing superhero in the woods. Being a superhero was my dream. Well, on my 8th birthday, my dream sort of came true. I figured out how I could become a superhero. It was a Saturday, and I was trespassing with some older kids at the aerodrome. It's called the Bayport Aerodrome. It's right across the street from my house on Bayport Avenue. So anyway, I'm running because the guards who are chasing us, this is how we used to get our thrills, the guards are chasing us in their pickup truck. And they're shooting at us with assault shotguns because we won't stop trespassing at the aerodrome. So anyway, I'm running, and the guards are shooting at me. And I start to freak out because I realize that I'm the only one not yet over the fence. Everyone else is along the fence. And I could see them, all the kids screaming, "Deaf kid, go! Deaf kid, go!" So as I'm running, I take off my cape and I throw it up onto the barbed wire fence. And I vault over. I turn my back around. And I see the guards in their pickup truck. They're coming to a screeching halt. Right in front of the fence. They get out of the pickup truck, and they look at me. They're all pissed because they can't catch me. So anyway, there's this kid everybody calls Commander. And he busts his way through the crowd of kids that are surrounded around me. And he gets in front of my face, and he pokes me in the chest and says, "Why are you here?" "Dunno," I say. And Commander mimics me to the whole crowd. He says, "Dunno, dunno, dunno." He gets up in my face and he says, "I want to punch you." So all the kids that are in the circle around us, they back up a few steps. And I stand there. I put up my fist to fight. I pee my pants. And I get ready to get hit. And before Commander can hit me, someone distracts him. "He peed his pants! Deaf kid peed his pants!" And Commander doubles over in laughter. And I see this is my chance to take off and run. So I run for home. When I get up to my house, my mom, I see when I get through the door that she's on the telephone talking to somebody. So I tiptoe in real quiet without being noticed. And when I get inside the bathroom, I take some warm soapy water and I wash away the urine. And I change my clothes. And a short time later, my mom rounds up my older brother, my little sister Jill, and me, and she takes us to 5 o'clock Mass at Our Lady of the Snow. And when we get home from church, Mom says to us to all go play. And so we open up my presents and we have my birthday cake. So I do like I usually do, which is go into my bedroom, go in the closet, and read. So there I am in my closet. I got this blue blanket. And I pull it over my head. And I got this flashlight. And I shine it down into the reading material at my feet. And I've got this Bible that I stole from church a couple weeks ago. And some comics. And so I think, I get curious. So I'm like, I'm going to open up the Bible at random. So I open it up. And I see the name Moses. And I think, I remember learning something about Moses in Mrs. Murphy's religion class and seeing something about Moses on TV. So this makes me more curious. So then I start to scan the page and I read these words. And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And then it hits me. Is Moses deaf like me? Like Moses, like Spider-Man, like Superman? I too have a destiny. I will be a savior. Father Michael always talks about the Savior in church. I will be a Savior like him. Moses saved the Jews. Spider-Man saves Mary Jane. Superman saves Lois Lane. I'll be a Savior like them. This is my destiny. I want to be a superhero. I think it's really pathetic that Moses was the first deaf person I ever met. Because I was mainstreamed, I never actually got to meet another deaf person. Before I met Moses, I thought that I was alone in this universe. Now, obviously, there were deaf people around me. There probably were deaf people in the grocery stores, deaf people in the restaurants. I probably saw deaf people everywhere I went, but I never actually got to meet a deaf person. Moses was my first. In my worldview as a child, Moses was a superhero. There was no difference between Moses and Spider-Man. Both had superpowers and both did good deeds. Peter Parker's Uncle Ben, Spider-Man's Uncle Ben, always says, with great power comes great responsibility. When I was a little kid, I discovered one of my superpowers to be the ability to tell good stories. I learned the art of entertaining and informing people by using my stories. Much later, when I was working as a preschool teacher, I discovered another of my superpowers to be the ability to understand the non-spoken communication of young children. Because my first language was not English. My first language was faces. Before I learned to read lips, I learned how to read people's faces and their emotions. So whose story gets heard? There are so many stories that are pushed aside as not important enough to hear. For the deaf, with their communicative differences, many of those stories are not being told to the larger world. More hearing people write and tell about deaf people than deaf people themselves do. So much of what we know about deaf people is largely wrong. So I want to start off with a super powerful message, one that I want you all to hear. It's this: deaf people are not disabled. Go ahead, repeat this out loud 3 times. Deaf people are not disabled. Deaf people are not disabled. Deaf people are not disabled. I want to take this idea that deaf people are not disabled, and I want to use this idea to show you how our schools are disabling our deaf students. If I could be so bold, I'd even say our schools are dumbing down our deaf students. I'm going to tell you about the downright criminal graduation literacy and employment rates of deaf folks. At the end of this talk, I'm going to tell you exactly what you can do to help us deaf folks right now, today. For many of you, you may be surprised to learn that 90% or more of deaf children are born to hearing parents. Many of these hearing parents have little or no understanding of sign language or deaf culture. For many of these hearing parents, their deaf child is the first deaf person they ever met. So unlike other language minority groups, say if you're Hispanic and you live in the United States, and your home language is Spanish and your school language is English, if you're lucky, you're in a bilingual environment. But for deaf children, they don't share the same language as their parents. Spoken language is not a deaf child's natural language. Deaf children are a part of what my good friend and colleague Ben Bahan calls the visual variety of the human race.